and that makes it slightly different by about 3 seconds a lap. So the lap record now here in a Super Trofeo is actually held by Kei Cozzolino, the Japanese driver, and it's about 3 seconds faster than these guys, but he wasn't going through the chicane. These guys using the chicane course have actually gone quicker. So the new fastest lap in qualifying, the lap record for this category, is a 41.1 set yesterday by Chris Vanderdrift to claim pole. So Zhu Shengwei and Max Visa on pole position. Tony Walls and Jackson Walls alongside. Marco Giltrap and Chris Vanderdrift, the Runaway Pro Series points leaders and 3 times winners from the 5 races so far this year, will start from position number 3. Their qualifying time was about 6/10 off, and Marco Giltrap, of course, did that second session. Jason Lowe and Mark Darwin, who did just a fantastic job yesterday. The car had spun twice prior to the safety car intervention. By the time they got back to the tail end of the field for the restart, they ultimately worked their way through to finish on the podium in the AM category, and they are the leading AM category car starting from position 4. Wei and Miko Nasty, who did a brilliant job yesterday to storm through from the back again, a bit like Mark Darwin, to finish in position number 4. They will start from P5 and second in Pro-Am. Alongside them on the third row, Henry Kay and Eric Kay in the Triple Ace Racing AM entry. They are number 2 for the AM category. Starting from position 7, Brian Lee and John Kwan, who did such a brilliant job again yesterday. John Kwan holding out Jackson Walls and Max Visa as they charged through the closing laps, unable to hold it all the way to the end. But the SQDA Grit Motorsport team again presenting a real focal point for the myriad of South Korean fans ahead of our visit there to Injae Speedium in just a month's time for the 4th round of the 2023 season. Annie Watton and Prom Sombat in the star performance by Absolute number 19 entry. They have been stars right through the year and are right in the AM class battle. They were back on the podium yesterday. They'll start from position 8. Oscar Lee and Dan Wells a little bit further back than they would like in the new look DW Evans GT team, and they will start 3rd for Pro-Am and 9th on the grid. Zhilong Kang and Ray Liu, I didn't see the car as I was just reading through to see whether it was on the grid. I'm assuming it is. We'll start from position number 10, a strong qualifying position for Ray Liu, the car owner. Bobby Buncheron in position number 11, the popular Thai driver from True Visions Motorsport. Johnson Wang and Vincent Tai for BC Racing. They've been very competitive. Got a bit of a penalty yesterday for an incident during the closing stages of the race, and the stewards have also been particularly poignant about track limits. So that is another thing that the drivers need to be particularly careful of. There have been a number of warnings during the race yesterday, and that's something they'll need to be aware of. Jonathan Chicotto, the star of round 2 of the season at the Bend Motorsport Park in Australia, will start from position number 13. He, of course, shares the car with Li Chiang, and they will be 4th in Pro-Am. Dr. Ma and Keith Vong, the Australian-based driver from Macau. Keith set pole position for the Lamborghini Cup category, and he and Dr. Ma will start from position number 14. Keith Vong at the wheel. Super Chai, who is the championship points leader in the... Oh, sorry, no, he's not. That is Kumar Prabhakaran, who's in position number 16. But Super Chai will start 2nd in Lamborghini Cup, ahead of the points leader Kumar in the Iron Lynx entry. Gavin Huang, the son of Johnson Huang, who is starting from position 12. Gavin Huang, just 16 years of age. He's been racing in Chinese Taipei alongside David Rio in TCR in that part of the world, and he's making his GT debut, and was very competitive yesterday, finished in position number 10. Herio and Haziko had qualified position 18, but as we were talking about earlier, the Lamborghini Cup entry, the number 5 entry for the HZO Fortis Racing team, will not be a starter in this one after suffering a little bit of chassis damage yesterday, just too much for them to be able to repair before this round. And then the Pro-Am entry of Hao Wen Liu and Benjamin Rouget, who missed the last round, the Vortex Orion Endurance entry, weren't in Australia, but they are starting from position 19, and then starting rear of field, Junta Shiro and Shunseki Kono. Of course, the Promotion Racing Japanese entry is a guest entry, not scoring championship points here this weekend, but certainly firing up this big Japanese crowd. Here predominantly, of course, for the Super Formula. It's a round of Super Formula with a number of budding Formula One future drivers in the field. Been very popular up and down pit lane. But so too have these gorgeous Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2s. really grabbed the attention of the local community after being away for 3 years. A staple circuit of the championship since its debut in 2012 at Sepang in Malaysia, and through the various different iterations of the Super Trofeo. The cars have been very popular and well received locally. Performance-wise, very impressive too. In fact, GT World Challenge was here not too long ago. The full GT3 spec of the Huracan set a fastest lap of a 39.7. You consider these guys are in the low 41s. Ride height's a little bit higher than the GT car. Significant difference in the aerodynamics, which anybody that follows GT racing anywhere around the world will certainly pick up just looking at the rear wing, for instance, much less the front of the car. So less downforce, but predominantly a lot of the basics from driver aids all the way through are as per the GT cars. Tyres different in width certainly, and some diameter change. So that does also affect the performance. Control, Hankook C54 compound tyre, the Hankook Ventus race. Hankook, of course, a great supporter of Lamborghini Super Trofeo around the world. All these cars run on the same compound tyre. It's a medium compound tyre. You think Formula One, soft, hard and medium. Well, this is medium. So very durable tyre, more than capable of running the full 50-minute race length. Every race, 12 races of the season, 50 minutes in duration with a compulsory pit stop between minute 20 and minute 30, a 10-minute window. You must commit your stop during that time, whether you're a single driver entry or, as at least the bulk of this field is, a dual driver entry. You must stop for a minimum amount of time. That's 88 seconds for, I need to double check that. I think it's actually 89 seconds for this track. It is in fact 89 seconds for the two driver entries and 92 seconds for the single driver entries. The race will be controlled. It's a rolling start for every round of Super Trofeo. So watch the cars get into order. The cars at the rear of the field are going to get themselves a little bit caught behind. They'll pick up a little bit of momentum, but they don't want to get too far off the leaders on this very long straight. Max Visa will control the start. Jackson Walls, the impressive young Australian who's really stepped up since moving from open wheelers into GT competition. Side by side, left of screen Harmony Racing, right side Objective Racing. What will we see off the line? Lights are red. Waiting for a start. I can hear the engines in the background. We're underway with race 6 of the 2023 Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia Series. And just side by side, the banging mirrors already. Max Visa and Jackson Walls, they did this yesterday. Who's that down the inside? Very wide. That's forced Mark Darwin wide. And it's also seen the race winners from yesterday. Marco Giltrap pushed further back. A solid start from Miko Nassi, who was a real star yesterday. So two of the drivers that stormed through the field battling over position 4 and just trying to pick up who's that's picked up position number 3. Now, is that Oscar Lee, who's managed to make amends for yesterday? I'm not sure it is based on the colour of the car. Certainly the right colour, and in fact, I think it is. If that's Oscar Lee, he's done a sterling job off the start, and it is too. What a great recovery after yesterday. Now, let's hope that he managed the most of this, because he had a tough run yesterday and was turned around whilst battling for third position in the race. But up front, Max Visa has done what he did yesterday and got ahead of Jackson Walls. Miko Nassi in the new look Safe House Racing entry. They changed teams between rounds 2 and 3. He'll be looking to try and move forward. He's been very, very impressive so far during the course of this weekend. Of course, a Pro-Am entry. They are battling the car in front of them, who have been the standout this year and have won every race in Pro-Am up to yesterday's race, which was won by Tony and Jackson Walls. Nassi down the inside, but has he slowed the two of them up? This is something you've got to be mindful of leading onto this 1.5 kilometre long main straight. That could put Mark Darwin in the box seat, match to carry momentum through. Oscar Lee tucked in under the rear wing. Miko Nassi. Nassi's done a very, very good job getting off the line. They're already 1 second gap between Max Visa and Jackson Walls at the front of the field. A very impressive opening lap from the Italian, two-time champion back in the day. Oh, Nassi's gone way too deep. That's opened the door. He's got a bit of drive on the outside, but be careful to keep the wheels off the grass. He's got the inside heading into turn 3. Darwin under fire from Giltrap. Watch out for Giltrap. He's a real star. And John Kwon has been very, very impressive too. The South Korean driver, American-based, he's been very impressive. That team, since they made their debut in the championship earlier in the year, they've been very, very strong. And they will be ones to keep a very close eye on when we get to South Korea. Darwin down the inside of Oscar Lee. One thing Oscar Lee has done is he's been probably a little bit too gentlemanly. He's managed to keep the car away from contact in most cases. He's a very racy driver, a lot of experience. Dan Wells alongside him, giving him a lot of guidance. They've done a lot of mileage in Asia. They've done a lot of mileage in Europe, been strong in the World Finals for Lamborghini in past seasons. And he's under fire now from Giltrap. But I think yesterday, part of him getting caught up in contact was very much the fact that he was allowing people space. And in some of these competitions, when it's so closely matched and the cars are identical, you really can't afford to open the door at any level. Unfortunately, late in the race with about 10 minutes to go and you've got the safety car bunching the field up, there's not much room for niceties as Marco Giltrap's now gone up the inside. That's 2 losses in that final corner in 2 laps now for Oscar Lee, but he's got the inside and he may well have better drive off the corner and takes the position back on the run down to turn 1. He's certainly got the inside. Not much Giltrap can do. They're out to 280 kilometres per hour as they keep pulling gears in those 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10s. The sound is absolutely fantastic as we come down to turn 1. Under brakes, can Giltrap go wide? Certainly been given a lot of room. Well, he hasn't been given too much room. He's listening to me, Oscar Lee. He will have been given plenty of advice from Dan Wells not to make it too easy for his rivals, but Giltrap's used his experience to get in front. Now, that's the number 17 entry. That's a little bit further back. David Rio in the race graph entry. I don't know what's going on there. We should see a replay. That's Ray Liu, actually, in the number 17 entry. No, it's not. I apologise. David Rio, here we go. He's just tried to get out of the way. Bobby Buncheron lost the rear of the car. We saw a couple of drivers do that yesterday. Frustratingly for Superchai, who has been very strong in Lamborghini Cup. Take a look. Just locked a wheel, gone in too deep, just tried to turn it, maybe got on the power a little bit early. Keith Vong managing to avoid. He's done a good job, and it looks like he may well be leading in Lamborghini Cup and getting away. So he's done a good job, the Australian-based driver from Macau. Now the number 19 entry is in. The left rear looks like it's gone down. So they've had a contact potentially somewhere along the line. What are we seeing here? Well, the tyre's gone down at that point. So whether there'd been contact prior to that, yeah, just lost the rear, as you will when you're only running on 3 tyres. He's running on a rim. It's a little bit of damage to the left rear of the car, so he may well have had contact at some point during the race. So that's a stop that is really going to be a setback. Now, I'm just checking which of the drivers started the number 19 entry. And I think that's Aniwat. So disappointment for them after such a strong showing so far. They are currently leading the AM class, but it's only 4 points in it. And the problem they've got at the moment is it's Brian Lee and John Kwan who are just 4 points behind. They are currently in position number 7. And unfortunately now, for the number 19 Star Performance by Absolute Racing entry, they're back now in position number 19. So not a good points haul. Bobby Buncheron yesterday, who managed to cross the line and take a position. He took position 12 on the line over Kumar, who went on to take the LC, or Lamborghini Cup trophy and the victory. They crossed the line side by side. Buncheron managing to just get through on the line as he's battling here with Eric Kay. Buncheron got across the line by 2 1/1000ths of a second. The two cars side by side after 50 minutes as he's side by side now with Eric Kay. Need to be careful as they dive down to the chicane. Buncheron's an experienced campaigner, done a lot of one-make GT competition. Been involved in categories like GT Asia, certainly the Thailand Super Series, and he is well adverse to karting points. And that's what these championships are about. It's consistency, making sure you are there at the finish. 4 categories, of course: Pro, Pro-Am, the Am class, and Lamborghini Cup, which is for, lesser experienced drivers who are maybe making their first foray into one-make competition. Talking to Andre Couto, who's the 2000 Macau Formula 3 champion. He is the driver coach for these guys, as that is Marco Giltrap really storming in under the rear wing of Mark Darwin, and that will be a position change up to position number 4 now. So Visa's out front, 1.6 seconds the gap to Jackson Walls. Back in position 3, Miko Nassi is 6.5 seconds back from the race lead, but just behind him, you've got, now Marco Giltrap, followed by Mark Darwin. Oscar Lee is 9 seconds back from the lead in position number 6. Shunsuke Kono, the Japanese Super GT driver, is storming through the field. He's up to position number 7. The quickest lap for him at the moment is a 43.5. You compare that to a 42.5 for Max Visa at the front of this field. So certainly that shows you just how impressive Max Visa's pace is. 42.7, quickest lap for Jackson Walls. The fastest lap yesterday's race. That was set by one Chris Vanderdrift. I haven't actually got it monitored on my timing sheet, but he set the fastest lap of the race, and it was about low to mid 42. So current pace of Visa is a 42.5, so very similar. Talking back about Andre Couto, who's driven a lot of GT competition. He's certainly done a lot of Super GT for the Lamborghini marque in this part of the world prior to COVID. He's the ideal man to have in your corner. He goes out early in a weekend and sets a benchmark time for which drivers can adapt their data. And he's there for any of the drivers to try and help them improve with any areas they have questions on. And he admits this is arguably the best one-make car he's ever driven. Very, very forgiving. Very rarely will you see a locked brake with the way the ABS system works and the traction control. And he says these drivers are really been gifted an opportunity to drive something very special, and performance-wise, as we've seen in the past, very close to the performance of an outright GT3 car. In fact, on occasions, I've seen the limiters, the restrictors removed from these cars, and they were every bit a match for the GT3 cars. That said, of course, we're talking about the lack of aero that they carry versus a GT3 car. So in a circuit like this, designed very much around Formula One, where you've got a lot of high-speed corners. Now, I'm looking at the bonnet of the number 84 entry. You can see more of the headlights of Marco Giltrap's car than you can of Miko Nassi. So when you see another front view, it just looks like the front of the car ahead of the headlights. There's more of a gap there. So I wonder whether there's been some contact or whether something's come loose. Now, that certainly looks like there's been a little bit of frontal contact and just pushed the bonnet back. Now, that could have, well, I use the term bonnet, I suppose it's a piece of carbon fibre aerodynamics. It's not a bonnet in the true sense of the word, but let's call it a bonnet for the sake of the argument. It seems to have had a little bit of contact. Now, whether that affects the car over the course of the race will be interesting. It certainly doesn't seem to have affected Marco Giltrap's pace, 42.6 for him. So he's actually quicker than Jackson Walls in front of him. The problem with that, though, of course, is he's got Miko Nassi in front of him. So he's got through now, and I think he's probably managed to force Nassi far enough wide to slow him down and just encumber his run onto the main straight. So I don't know whether Giltrap's going close to the pit wall just to show the team the way the bonnet looks, or whether he's decided on something else. Certainly a dirtier part of the circuit, but definitely the left front. You can see the bodywork there's just pushed back above the left front wheel. So that's another concern, no doubt, for the team too, who'll be watching on. So it's Visa out by 1.5 seconds. Jackson Walls in position 2. Marco Giltrap, we're watching on screen, who's just got through on Miko Nassi. Mark Darwin in position 5 and leading the AM category. Oscar Lee in position 6. Shunsuke Kono in position number 7. Vincent Tai for BC Racing and second in AM in position number 8. Henry Kay in that battle with Bobby Buncheron for position 9. Buncheron in position 10. Brian Lee is in position, in fact it's not, it is John Kwon who finished yesterday's race, so he started this race. The American-based South Korean driver for the SQDA Grit Motorsport entry is in position number 11. He's just taken a position away from Lee Chung, the Pro-Am entry. Number 10 entry he shares with the man who really set the world on fire at the Bend Motorsport Park. That is, of course, Jonathan Cecotto, son of two-time world motorcycle champion Johnny Cecotto. In the Lamborghini Cup battle, Keith Vong continues to lead. He's out by 11.8 seconds now on Superchai, so he'd be very happy with that. He needs a big advantage to hand to his co-driver, Dr. Ma, who's effectively on par, about third or fourth quickest of the LC Cup drivers, so he'll have a little bit of work cut out for him as he jumps behind the wheel. So certainly Keith will be doing everything he can as Visa clocks up lap number 7. Keith Vong to extend that advantage prior to the pit stops. Kumar, the points leader for Lamborghini Cup, is in position number 15 and third of the Lamborghini Cup drivers, positions 13 through 15. Hao Wen Liu for Vortex Orion Endurance. He will hand over during the pit stop to a young Frenchman, Benjamin Rouget, who's had a bit of experience around the Asian circuits, certainly in open wheelers. He will take over from position number 16 as it stands right now. David Rio, who had that spin at turn 1 in the racecraft entry, position number 17. And, well, it says Harry O is in position number 18, so I apologise if I've missed that. But what they may have done, because Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia, like I guess most of the championships around the world, the 3 regional championships, North America, Europe and Asia, may have taken over the spare car. So they've been shown in position number 18, and Annie Watts back in position number 19 after that contact that we assumed there was contact, because certainly the left rear tyre had gone down, forced him into an early pit stop. And because that's outside the pit window, they will again have to come in during the 20 to 30 minute mark. So that's in about 6.5 minutes time, the pit window will open. Of course, you've got a Pro-Am entry. If the pro's behind the wheel at the moment, as is Jackson Walls, he will continue through to the very final stage of that pit window just before it closes to pit and hand over to his father, Tony. There is the SQDA Grit Motorsport entry from South Korea. John Kwon is the driver in position number 11 as things stand at the moment. Probably a little bit further back than they would hope. Don't know whether it looks like it's going slowly, whether it's the angle. Certainly John's working hard at the wheel. Oh, yes, certainly hard at the wheel. Probably got on the throttle a little bit too hard as he came through turn 15. You can see the tail of the car break away as this battle further forward between, well, that is Miko Nasi, Mark Darwin, Oscar Lee and Shunsuke Kono, who is the last of those cars, the guest team from Promotion Racing from Japan. That would be number 51 entry, Vincent Tai, the duo from Chinese Taipei. As this battle continues between, well, that's the number 37 entry of Kumar and the 17 entry behind him of David Rio, recovering after that early spin. The racecraft entry, Kumar is the points leader in the Lamborghini Cup. He had a fairly solid record up to yesterday's race, and improved again to take his third win. 3 wins and 2 second place finishes to put himself effectively 20 odd points clear of Superchai, who was leading and lost the rear of the car in the closing stages of the race into turn 1. Similar incident we saw with David Rio. Just, the back stepped out as he got onto the throttle, wasn't quick enough to catch it. It spun, and he went from what was there he is on screen, Superchai, from what was effectively a comfortable lead back to position number 3 in the category. Still made the podium, but unfortunately that was a good, strong haul of points that would have pushed him closer to Kumar. But unfortunately, there's Kumar on screen, still battling with David Rio. Prabhakaran managed to grab his third last win of the season so far. Of course, we started back at Malaysia, or in Malaysia rather, a little bit earlier in the year. It was back in May, and that provided us with some fantastic racing. Although I have to say, sitting on the grid, just about to get the green flag for the opening race, and the heavens opened. We had torrential rain for 45 minutes, delaying the start. The thing that impressed me was drivers the calibre of Chris Vanderdrift. Went straight to slicks after the rain stopped and skated around for the opening lap. But as he pointed out immediately after the race, Sepang is one of those circuits that dries so quickly, and this looks like a passing move. It certainly is. Li Chang. No, that isn't Li Chang. That is, in fact, the number 9. will see car 17, turn 15, track limits, second warning. So further back down the order, Gavin Huang, having taken over the reins of the number 17 entry from David Rio, will make sure he he doesn't put a foot wrong. Is up front. Let's see what the pace of Chris Vanderdrift has been. Pole for race 1, fastest lap race 1, victory in race 1, effective lead of race 2. Still looks like 77 and 33 entries are in pit lane. Let's see what we can see from the longest shot as it goes wide. Oh, we've got a spinner. That's the 51 entry. Now that has had a driver change. In fact, no, it has, and it's Johnson Huang behind the wheel. So they were shown down in position number 8. In fact, they were in position number 7. They lost one position to Jun Toshiro, the Japanese driver. Pit window has closed, so all the pit stops have been committed. Car number 37, Kumar. Track limits, first warning, turn 15. So that's on the exit of turn 15, second last corner. A few drivers falling foul of that one. Turn 3, the exit of turn 3 had been one. Turn 6, interestingly, had been another during the course of the weekend so far. It's down to turn 10, 11. Goes race leader. Well, I'm calling him race leader because certainly Nassi and, now Jason Lowe, and it won't be Nassi, it'll be Way behind the wheel. They were across the timing line in their pit bays, all the way down near the pit exit. Very, very long pit lane here at Fuji, 487, if we're going to be accurate, 487.2 metres. The main straight, 1.475 kilometres. So scratch the pit lane, there's another kilometre straight outside of the pit lane. The longest and fastest in Asia. A popular circuit amongst the drivers, but very technical. And as we talked about earlier, a little bit more of a challenge for the AM drivers to just get a handle on. But with the beauty of that data from Andre Couto, the 2000 Macau Formula 3 champion, they're able to make good use of that. Chris Vanderdrift leads. Now, Zhusheng Wei really needs to get his skates on. He lost 6.7 seconds in that last lap to Vanderdrift. Okay, he's an AM, but that's a lot of gap back to a professional driver, or to a professional driver, that he needs to improve on. To be fair, though, he's just got in the car. He's not a pro driver. And this is another of the areas, like the fast and mid-speed corners, that does set the men from the boys, or the pros from the AMs. It is the outlap of an AM driver that can often have a big impact on track position, just getting themselves up to speed. A pro driver can jump in a car and be at 9/10 straight away. An AM driver could be anywhere between 2/10 and 7/10 getting themselves up to speed. That can account for wholesale seconds and drop a team back down the order. And in the overall race strategy, that's something the race teams need to put in order. Here's Dan Wells. Dan Wells in position number 3, and you can see where he sits in relation to Zhusheng Wei. And Zhu is about to drop down to position number 2. Now, I think the race win is completely out of the question for Dan Wells, but another race win in Pro-Am isn't. And after dropping back to 3rd in Pro-Am yesterday, the first time they weren't winners, he and Oscar Lee, in the category, they will be hoping to recover, and they have just, in fact, taken over the lead of the Pro-Am category. So the positions as we stand. Chris Vanderdrift leads this race. 6.7 seconds clear now of Dan Wells in the DW Evans GT entry on screen. Zhusheng Wei takes over position number 3. They're a pro entry, so they're second in pro. Pro-Am leaders, Dan Wells and Oscar Lee. Second in Pro-Am and 4th on track, Tony Walls for Objective Racing. And he has an 8-second advantage over Jun Toshiro for the Guest Racing Promotion Racing entry, as Zhusheng Wei is getting in all sorts of bother. Probably put himself a little bit under pressure just trying to maintain that position. But you've got pro drivers around you. You just really need to let them through. There's no sense battling for position. You know they're quicker than you are. We're talking about that opening lap that Vanderdrift got past him. He made an advantage of 6.5 odd seconds. That's a big difference in outright pace. You don't want to be worrying about that. Now, this is the Zeke O. This is the backup entry that they took over after their primary ride was damaged during that incident on lap 10 yesterday, spun into the path of another car. Damage didn't look too bad, but Team Boss Ingo Mater was telling me that it was too bad to have the Absolute team, who are very adept at repairing damaged cars, get it back onto track and be completely perfect. They'd rather it was sent back to the factory and straightened correctly. And they elected to take the spare car for this race. So we got down to Jason Lowe, the Iron Lynx entry, leading the AM category in the car he shares with Mark Darwin. They're position 6. Miko Nassi, well, Jason Lowe's taken over that entry, so Jason Lowe's in the entry above. Way has taken over that entry, 3rd in Pro-Am and 7th outright. Jonathan Cicotto, the man who dominated in Australia, one slight slip with the way he started the opening race, saw him given a 30-second penalty post-race, which dropped him back down the order, but he'd certainly dominated round 2 at the Bend Motorsport Park and was a brilliant drive for the Venezuelan second-generation racer. They're in position 8 and 4th in Pro-Am at the moment, and I think Way is going to have to get his skates on, because I would predict that Cicotto should get the number 10 entry up onto the podium. Eric Kay is 2nd in Pro-Am in the Triple Ace Racing entries, sharing with his brother Henry, as Kumar is just rounded up by race leader Chris Vanderdrift. They are in position 9 for Triple Ace Racing, Eric Kay and Henry Kay. Bobby Buncheron in position number 10 and position 3 at the moment in the AM category. He's got a 3-second advantage over Brian Lee, now in the SQDA Grit Motorsport entry. We saw John Quan have a little bit of drama with that in the opening stanza. And on pace, I'd expect Brian may well be able to catch Buncheron and get himself back onto the podium. Benjamin Rouget is now in the Vortex Orion Endurance entry in position number 12, just moved up a position, having taken Johnson Huang for position number 12. Huang in position 13 and 5th in the AM category. Kumar is leading again in the Lamborghini Cup. Dr. Ma is in position 2 and 3 seconds back. Now, here's a battle on track. Now, that's for position. That's Jason Lowe and Way battling for position. And in fact, we're talking about having to look out for Cicotto. Cicotto's gone. See you later. That 3 seconds just evaporated. It's disappeared. Not only has he taken the 77 entry, but he's moved past Jason Lowe to take the 33 entry. And that's Jonathan Cicotto now up to position number 6. We got back to Dr. Ma in position number 15, 2nd in Lamborghini Cup. Gavin Huang, the 16-year-old son of Johnson Huang, is in position number 16 and 6th in the AM category. Superchai 3rd in Lamborghini Cup, ahead of Hezekiah, who we saw in pit lane. Looks like he may well have rejoined, so whatever issue they were having, he's managed to recover from that. And Brom Sombat is in position number 19, so the 19 entry in position 19. And the unfortunate side of that is the Thai team that were leading the AM category are now going to really suffer in the points. The car is still circulating, but 2 laps down. We saw it pit very early in the race after what seemed to be contact with a deflated left rear tyre, and there may be residual issues as a result of that contact that may be forcing them further back down to the rear of the field. So dramas for them. That will almost certainly see the number 63 entry of Brian Lee and John Quan move up the order, as this battle for position goes on between Jason Lowe and the 33 entry and Way in the number 77 Safe House entry. Now, Way and Miko Nassi changed teams after Australia, so the Safe House team is a new entry for them, a new car, and they've put in some very solid performances so far. Currently holding position 8 and 4th in Pro-Am, but they finished 4th outright, and I think that was 2nd for them in Pro-Am yesterday, so a very solid debut for that team. 10 minutes left in this race. We're in the final 20% of race 6 of the 2023 season. Of course, we started this championship back in Malaysia earlier in the year, back in May. Second round about 5 weeks ago in Australia for the round at the Bend Motorsport Park, the first visit. Oh, there's a spinner, and Johnson Huang around again. So he's not having a particularly good time at the moment. I think that's his 2nd spin so far. That's the exit of turn 1. He's well off. That's just excess fuel burning at the rear of the car. Let's hope. Let's have a look. Maybe he's come in too deep. He certainly seems to be carrying speed. Slowed the car down a straight line, and the tail just got away. the camber of the turn 1 is a bit of a challenge. Looks like he's got it going now. Oh, that was very tight. That's 37. That's a tyre issue for the Lamborghini Cup race leader, Kumar. This is not what he needs. This will drop him well down the order. So this puts Dr. Ma back into the lead. He doesn't want to go too quickly. We see those tyres tear themselves apart if they're travelling too quickly. You do some more permanent damage. He's still in this race. He can continue to carry on. He's got the advantage over Hiziko. They're probably a lap back, as Tony Walls just gives him a bit of a wide berth. So he wants to be careful, Kumar Prabhakaran, getting that car back into pit lane without any additional damage. Replace that tyre and carry on. He's had a spin. I hope that wasn't a tag. I think he might have just gone onto the gas a little bit hard. We should get a replay of that one. But Prabhakaran's really suffering now. This will drop him back to, effectively to the rear of the field and out of this race. Let's hope he manages to fire it up, because that'll be the next issue. This could be a safety car with 8.5 minutes to go, and this will really mix up the order. Lights are on, so he's managed to refire the car and reset the system. Can he turn it around? Yeah, he's got it going. Needs to turn it around safely. Yes, well, that is from Sombat. We were talking about the tyre entry. It's just got up the inside. So disappointment for Kumar, and this will open up again the Lamborghini Cup points. He was leading quite comfortably over Superchai. Superchai will be up to position 2, I think, but 4.5 seconds back from Dr. Ma. Yeah, I think that spin probably hasn't done him any favours. It'd be great to see back at what's happening on at the pointy end of the field. What is definitely happening is that Chris Vanderdrift is extending his lead. 42.6, the fastest lap for that car. I'm pretty sure that was the lap set by Marco Giltrap earlier in the race. It doesn't tell me what lap that was set on. Last time around 43.5 for Chris Vanderdrift. And there goes the race leader around the outside of Kumar, who's basically had to do an entire lap on 3 wheels. Still hasn't finished, but he's back on the main straight. No, he's not. He's down at turn 13, coming through 14. And look at the damage here. We're just talking about that now. He's destroyed the right rear of the car. Hopefully the team are telling him just to back it off a little bit. But that tyre's delaminating and tearing apart the rear of the car and the tyre. There's nothing to gain now. Kumar just needs to drop back, drop the pace off, and even potentially pull over on a safe part of the circuit. We're spending a lot of time looking at that car, but he is well and truly out of the race for the Lamborghini Cup points, or the honours for this round. At the moment, that battle will come down to Dr. Ma, who's 4.5 seconds clear now of Superchai. So if they can keep that going, that will put Keith Bong, who did such great work to put the car on pole and give himself more than 12-second advantage as they headed into the pits for the pit stop. It's a lot of time to be looking at one car that's going very, very slowly, guys. There is a race on up front. The advantage now, 13 seconds, the lead to Chris Vanderdrift. As we look, well, that is the promotion racing entry, which is now up to position number 3, Junta Shiro. Dan Wells is comfortably in position 2, but 13 seconds back from the race lead. Toshiro 28.6 seconds back from the race lead, but in position number 3. And the car in front of him is the 17 entry, I think, of Gavin Huang, the racecraft entry. There is your race leader, Chris Vanderdrift. The car he shares with impressive young New Zealander Marco Giltrap, looking towards what would potentially be a 4th win from 6 rounds. This is the midpoint of the season. We started back in early May in Malaysia at Sepang International Circuit, the scene of the opening race back in 2012 of Super Trofeo Asia. Adelaide, rather, the Bend Motorsport Park in South Australia, which is over an hour from Adelaide, on the edge of the Australian outback. On the 9th to the 11th of June, we're here at Fuji Speedway for round 3. Round 4 will be at Injay Speedium, a change from Everland Speedway, which was where it was initially set for the 18th to the 20th of August. So in about 5 weeks' time, we will be at Injay Speedium. Then we're off to Shanghai in China, a scene of a lot of competition for Super Trofeo Asia. This great battle between Brian Lee, now who has caught Eric Kay. Just going to check that Eric Kay did in fact start the... a spin! Brian's got it all wrong. Whilst I was just checking the timing, Let's hope he's managed to keep the tyres on the car. Keep it going, Brian, because you're right in this fight. Now, that was... to check. Brian was in position they're third in the AM category. He's battling with Eric Kay, who's holding position for the lead in the AM category. And there's Jason Lowe, who is the leader of the AM category. So this is 4 positions. So that was the 3 cars, 1, 2, 3, battling for position. Brian Lee's unfortunately got it all wrong with only 4 minutes left. Oh, Jason Lowe just closed the door, and Eric Kay just got out of it. Now Dr. Ma's thrown away the lead of the Lamborghini Cup. So this is all happening in the final 5 minutes of this race. Battles right through the field. I hope he can get that car started. Certainly he'll be back in position number 2, and after his spin in very similar circumstances for Superchai yesterday, he will have taken over the lead of the Lamborghini Cup. He's gone well into the kitty litter there. He's going to drag all those stones out to the exit of the circuit. So he's got it refired. Has he maintained position number 3? I think he probably will, because Zico had done a second pit stop. Bobby Boncheron needs to be careful here, just in case, well, Dr. Ma will be caught up trying to check the car up, make sure things are all right. As we go back to the leader, I don't know what's happening down there at turn 4. Those cars have gotten through clearly. 3 and a bit minutes to go. Chris Vanderdrift untroubled up front as this battle continues for top points in the AM category. Pro-Am category, well, that's being led comfortably by Dan Wells, 12 seconds back from the race leader. I just need to check. Oh, here's another battle. And this is interesting, because I had thought that Jonathan Chicotto had already passed Zhu Shengwei. No, he was further back battling behind with Nassi and, of course, Jason Lowe. So he's well and truly brought himself further up the order. He is fastest on track. So the fastest lap for the Venezuelan driver, 42.50, 42.6 for Marco Giltrap, and it was a 42.9 for Max Visa. No, in fact, Max Visa did a 42.5. It was a 42.9 for Chicotto, so he's still half a second down. Now, what can the K entry do this time round? So it should be Eric behind the wheel. Sorry, just needed to double check that. Dives down the inside of Jason Lowe. Should make this quite clear. Has he gone in too deep? He's carrying plenty of speed on the exit. So much so that he's gone over onto the grass. But he's made it stick. So Eric Kay will be very happy with this. A great result for the 2 brothers from Hong Kong. Is up front, starting what could well be his final lap. In fact, he might, let's see. Black and white flag for car 17 for track limits. That's Gavin Huang. Car 16, Zhu Shengwei, track limits, first warning, turn 15. So stewards are well and truly keeping on top of this, making sure the drivers stay within the boundaries. This is one part of the circuit where drivers have run particularly wide and gone outside of track limits. No such drama for Chris Vanderdrift. And what a championship they are having so far. He is the reigning Pro Class champion from 2019. And he looks set to extend the championship points lead in the Pro category. Coming into this race, 74 points for Marco Giltrap and Chris Vanderdrift. And their closest competition, second, Zhu Shengwei, 44 points. They're a 30-point advantage already. And this is another full quota of 15 points. We'll take them on to 89 points, provisionally, of course, heading into the second half of the 2023 Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia season. Now, let's see. It should be 50 minutes plus a lap. No indication at the moment that we will see the checkered flag this time round, but another fabulous drive. This one set up by Marco Giltrap. Yesterday's race, very well set up by the man on screen, Chris Vanderdrift. Multiple winner in this category, multiple champion in a number of different disciplines. Now, here we go. This is for position number 2. Brian Lee has made a recovery. He just needs to caution himself a little bit, not get too carried away. I think he'll have Jason Lowe comfortably. Don't do anything dramatic. What happens on the exit of the corner? He hasn't done it there. Jason Lowe's running a very wide line. No doubt Mark Darwin is on the radio just guiding him through. Brian Lee trying the crossover, but he's going to put himself on the outside for the final stanza of corners. He doesn't need to be doing anything too dramatic. And what have they got behind them? Buncheron's next car in position behind them. That is the number 19 Thai entry, which is a lap down on these guys. Brian's doing everything in his power. He just needs a better line off the final corner. That's not it. He's not going to get through there. He's being particularly racy. He's got it now. Has he got it now? Yes, he does. He takes over position number 2. There's only what looks for a position through as well. Prom Sombat had taken over the 19 entry. And he's going to force Jason Lowe wide, so that just plays well and truly into Brian Lee's favour as the race leader, out 11.2 seconds. He's coming through the final stages of the last lap, I expect, of this race. Leader on last lap. There you go. Vanderdrift, Wells, Toshiro, Chikoto, Shengwei, Tony Walls, Wei, Eric Kay, Brian Lee and Jason Lowe are your top 10, as I expect this will be checkered flag time for the 4th time in 6 rounds for Giltrap Group and Lamborghini Auckland to Chris Vanderdrift and Marco Giltrap. Lights flashing for Dan Wells. A great recovery from yesterday's dramas for Oscar Lee in the closing stages of the race. He and Oscar Lee across the line in position number 2. So for the 21 entry, another victory in Pro-Am. Next across the line, top of screen, the white, red and black entry from Promotion Racing. Jun Toshiro will take position number 3, but not for championship points. Of course, they're a guest entry, the Japanese team, this weekend. We expect we may well see them in the championship next year. Jonathan Chikoto, the star of round 2 at the Bend Motorsport Park in Australia, takes position number 2 in Pro-Am and 4th outright. Left of screen is Kumar, who's fortunately been able to get back into pit lane and recover after that tyre failure, with the car on right of screen. Middle of screen, the white car. Chu Sheng Wei for Harmony Racing from pole position. His co-driver Max Visa crosses the line in position number 5 outright. Top of screen will take position number 6 and 3rd in Pro-Am. So great to see the Pro-Am winners from yesterday back on the podium. And can he do it? Brian Lee stormed all the way through to the tail of Eric Kay. I think Eric Kay probably thought he had it in the bag after watching Brian Lee spin. He hasn't. But unfortunately for the South Korean team, that spin really set them back down the order. And it would have otherwise been another victory for the SQDA Grit Motorsport team. But they'll have to take second. It's not too far behind their rivals for Triple Ace Racing, Eric Kay and Henry Kay. There is, that would be the winner of Lamborghini Cup, the orange car left of screen. And after that spin, unfortunately, Dr. Ma has to settle for position 2. So that looked like it was in the bag for that team too. So Chris Vanderdrift takes the win by 11.3 seconds. There is Dan Wells pulling alongside just to acknowledge the Kiwi, long-time rival, has taken another win. So Evans and Wells, Daniel Wells and I was talking about the DW Evans GT team, so getting that a little bit confused. And Oscar Lee, of course, will take position number 2. Tashihiro and Shunsuke Kono will take position number 3. Jonathan Chikoto, driving the number 10 TRT Racing entry with Lee Chung, will take position number 4. Zhu Shengwei and Max Visa in position number 5. Tony Walls and his son Jackson in position number 6, and back on the podium in Pro-Am for Objective Racing. Miko Nassi and Wei will take position number 7 and 4th in Pro-Am for Safehouse Racing. Eric Kay and his brother Henry will take the victory for the AM category for Triple Ace Racing. Brian Lee and John Kwan for SQDA Grit Motorsport narrowly missed the victory in the AM category, pulling alongside Eric Kay at the line. They will have to settle for position 2 in the AM division and 9th outright, 10th in the outright standings and 3rd in the AM category. Bobby Buncheron, a good result for the Thai driver. Jason Lowe and Mark Darwin in that Orange Iron Lynx entry, the number 33 car, fourth in AM category, 11th outright. Benjamin Rouget for Vortex Orion Endurance crossing the line in position number 12 and fifth in Pro-Am. Gavin Huang, the 16-year-old son of Johnson Huang, beats his father to the line to take position number 13 and 14. They are fifth and sixth in the AM category. And the star performance by Absolute, number 19 Audi, tie entry from Anawat and from Sombat take position number 15, seventh in the AM category. And then it is the four Lamborghini Cup cars as we look at Eric Kay, the winner of the AM category, on screen in the number 91 Triple Ace Racing entry. Super Chai taking a victory for Siam Gas Course, number 71 All Orange Lamborghini Cup entry. Dr. Ma driving alongside Keith Vong for Cam Lung Racing will take position number 2 and 17th outright in this race. Ezekiel and Harry O will recover after the setbacks of their DNF in the opening race to be position number 3. And unfortunately that tyre failure for Kumar, the points leader in Lamborghini Cup, the Iron Lynx entry. Very happy Eric Kay, and so he should be too. Loves his motorsport and certainly enjoys his time driving with his brother. Kumar taking position number 4, 19th outright, and that settles race 6 of the 2023 Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia Series. We are at the midpoint of the 2023 season. We are off to Injay Speedium in 5 weeks' time on the 18th and 20th of August, and that will be a popular event for the myriad of South Korean fans that will be hoping to see their hometown heroes, John Kwon and Brian Lee, do something special in the SQDA Grit Motorsport entry. Shanghai in China, scene of round 5 of the season on the 8th of September. Then, as has been the case for recent seasons, the World Final at Vallelunga in Italy will see the finals of the Asian, North American and, of course, European Championships 2 days before the World Final, where the top drivers all come together. And we've seen a number of Asian drivers compete very competitively in those championships. There is Jonathan Chicotto, star of round 2, and I keep calling him the star because he really did surprise everybody with his performance. Unfortunately for the Australian round, Lee Chung was unable to get into the country in time for the round, so Chicotto, who'd never planned to be a pro entry, was gifted the opportunity to drive on his own, and he took it with both hands and dominated both qualifying sessions, dominated the opening race and the second race. His only flaw in an otherwise perfect weekend, as we look at Dan Wells just recovering from the weekend, going over to shake Tony Wall's hand, was that he started the opening race too quickly. Rolling start, of course, you control the race. He was the pole sitter, he could do that, but he was just way too fast getting to the control line, and unfortunately post-race was given a 30-second penalty. His pace was so good he could still have wound up on the podium, except for the fact we finished under safety car, and that meant he went from position 1 to position 11. A very happy Keith Wong, and unfortunately Dr. Ma, still with helmet on, still recovering, will be very disappointed with that run because he had the win in the bag, except for that late spin. And he wasn't the only one. Brian Lee left a screen with the glasses, just taking a sip of water, trying to recover. His co-driver, John Kwon, the two impressive South Koreans, just having a quick debrief. Brian Lee suffered the same thing. He too had a spin. So they weren't on their own on that front. But that just highlighted the course of the race. And another fantastic race. We've seen it all season, and it has happened once more. So we will go through to the podium. Stay with us as we just debrief on that front. And hopefully, well, I'm just reading something on screen. Car number 71, 10-second time penalty, causing a collision at turn 1. Now, car 71... well, that is the Siam Gas course entry. We're just talking about this great recovery for Super Chai, and unfortunately we didn't see it, but he seems to have blotted his copybook, and he is now going to drop back to position 2. So for Dr. Ma and Keith Vong, despite everything and a spin, they will be classified as winners of Lamborghini Cup for this round. Again, all these results are provisional, and for them, that will be their first victory so far this year. They've had a string of seconds, another second yesterday, but they have managed to come through to take the victory. Now, I'm reading off the timing monitor, so these results are provisional until they are finally given approval. And yesterday we saw that take quite some time, unfortunately, because of a number of issues during the course of the race. And as is often the case, you need timing details, you need team details, you need to look at data, you need to look at onboard vision. That meant that we didn't have an official result until much later in the night, and ultimately what that saw was the number 16 Harmony Racing entry, which had crossed the line in position 2, was penalised 10 seconds. They dropped them back to position number 3 officially as a classification. And they've had another strong one. So we go to the class winners. Class winners in the Pro category, Chris Vanderdrift and Marco Giltrap win the Pro category. Pro-Am victory to Daniel Wells and Oscar Lee in the DW Evans GT entry. The guest entry, well, that's an aside. We won't go that far. Eric Kay and Henry Kay in the number 91 Triple Ace Racing entry take victory in the AM category. And despite everything, Dr. Ma and Keith Vong will take victory in the Lamborghini Cup for the 6th round of the season, the midpoint of the 2023 Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia Series. 4 podiums. We have the outright podium, we have the Pro-Am podium, we have the AM podium, and we have the Lamborghini Cup podium, and a happier group of people you will never see in your life. And they really do know how to celebrate a victory. You can see all the cars down there on pit lane or in Parc Ferme as it stands. Of course, can't be touched until finally signed off. Data's been downloaded. Everything's been checked. So they are locked in Parc Ferme as it stands at the moment. We will very shortly see the outright winners of this race, as they were yesterday, for the 4th time this year. That will be, of course, the Absolute Racing Giltrap Group and Lamborghini Auckland entry of Chris Vanderdrift and compatriot Marco Giltrap, who's turning in to be a very, very impressive young driver. We're talking about lap times. It's a Pro Series entry. He's only in his formative years as a driver. Of course, he's come through the ranks of karting, and I'm sure has done some open wheel competition, but been very handy in GT competition in both his home country of New Zealand and in Australia. He's been multiple race winner on both sides of the Tasman, and that has translated to so far 4 victories in Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia in the Huracan Evo 2 in the Asian region. What better co-driver could you ask for than one CVD? Fear the drift, hashtag, as it says on the back of his suit. And fear the drift indeed. Well, you could also say drift at own risk at an event like this, and it has been drift at your own risk for a number of drivers who managed to turn that drift into a spin. And that has cost positions and certainly mixed up the order right down through the order. And part of the beauty of these 4 categories is that you could say that everybody's a winner, but ultimately what it does, it makes it attractive for drivers who, we're talking about a 6.5 second gap between Shu and Chris Vanderdrift just in one lap alone. It becomes frustrating when you can't compete at that level despite being in identical cars. So by breaking it into various different trophy classes, that gives each team drivers to compete against at their level just to mix things up. And Pro-Am entry, and whether you start a Pro or an Am, the performance of the car is different. That brings strategy into play. Weather comes into play, pit stop windows come into play, safety car interventions come into play. So that makes it interesting for the engineers and the teams just to mix things up. All this does is make my job an awful lot easier. It makes it a lot more interesting for the competitors, certainly for the people watching online, and we thank you from where you are around the world, certainly those of you in Europe that have climbed out of bed early in the morning or alternatively stayed up late at night. The racing becomes very, very interesting and competitive. So we always see good results in this one make form of competition, and cars as competitive as the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Huracan Evo 2 with these very durable Hankook tyres makes for brilliant racing right through the course of each 50-minute race. A little bit of officialdom to sort through, which is very particular to this part of the world. And it's been a great honour to return to Fuji Speedway and Japan for Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia. John Flynn and the team from Squadra Corsa, and certainly Top Speed, the organisers of this fantastic championship, are very grateful to be back at such a brilliant circuit. It's a Super Formula weekend here this weekend. Effectively, for those of you that aren't up to speed with open wheel competition in Japan, effectively Japanese F1, just to encapsulate it into something that's easy to understand. A lot of young drivers who will end up in international FIA competition are competing here. New Zealander Liam Lawson is no doubt trying to emulate his compatriots. Red Bull back driver running in Super Formula. Of course, well supported by the Giltrap Group. Part of the hierarchy of which Marco Giltrap is a part. But outside of that, he's also a very, very talented young driver. Alex Young just about to introduce the drivers down there on the podium. We will start with the outright finishes, which is just outright. It's not reflective of the classes. So we'll see a bit of Dan Wells and Oscar Lee, but certainly for Chris Vanderdrift and Marco Giltrap, they will again, for the fourth time this season, stand on the top step. Dan Wells and Oscar Lee will be on the second step. And it'll be interesting to see who's on the third step. I would imagine, despite being a guest entry, that Jun Toshiro and Shunsuke Kono, they will certainly get the cheers of the crowd. The local team finished third in the promotion racing entry. They certainly crossed the line in position number 3. And Jonathan Chikotto in that number 10 TRT racing entry he shares with Lee Chung finished in position 4. But we will see them on the podium certainly, having finished second in Pro-Am. So stay with us. We'll be very close to our podium celebrations. A little bit of a delay. I'd expect that's just to do with getting all the formalities right. Drivers are certainly up in the green room. And here we go with the outright podium for race 6 of the 2023 Super Trofeo Asia Series.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now having the podium ceremony for race 2.
Again, always a pleasure coming to Japan. The passion they have for motorsport, right up and down pit lane. The fans, the crowds, of course, a lot of them are here to see Super Formula, but they get just as involved with Super Trofeo Asia. The pit lane walk always packed. A lot of interested people up and down pit lane. And certainly the crowds lining up early in the day. There is Marco Giltrap, left of screen, right of screen, the man who is the reigning Pro Class champion. And these guys are the runaway points leaders in the Pro category this year. Chris Vanderdrift, right of screen. Marco Giltrap, left of screen. Big future ahead of him, that young man. Dan Wells and Oscar Lee, up until this round, had dominated Pro-Am. Had to play, well, not second fiddle, in fact, third fiddle during yesterday's race. But have recovered to take top honours for Pro-Am. Okay, so the guest team aren't on the podium, but for Jonathan Chikotto, he stands alongside Lee Chung, and he'll be very happy with that result on the podium outright. And the guest team, of course, the local drivers, Jun Toshiro and Shunsuke Kono, deserve it to be on the podium as well as guest drivers. Across the line in position 3, but not in the championship for this weekend, hence the guest team. Victory again for the pair from New Zealand. Their 4th win from 6 rounds. A great result. Dan Wells will be happy with that recovery after a tough run yesterday for Oscar Lee. I'm sure Oscar will be disappointed with that, but you really can't pin too much of it on him. He got caught up in a melee in the closing stages. Safety car off, whole gaggle of cars coming into a chicane. Lots of contact, cars forced wide, cars avoiding contact. And unfortunately, we're talking about it earlier, he's
let's
perhaps a
invite
little bit
the
too
race to
gentlemanly,
Hancock
left the door open
fastest
perhaps a
lap
little bit
award.
much, and
The
he didn't need
award
to
goes
offer some of
to
these drivers a
car
second
number
opportunity.
16
Certainly the pro
from
drivers, they'll
Harmony
take any
Racing,
opportunity and force their
Max
way through.
Rider.
That pushed them back down the order, a bit of contact too, create a bit of an issue. And well, I would expect
It's my
maybe
honor to invite
see the fastest
Mr. David
man
Strykova,
on track,
head of Japan Automobile
set the
Lamborghini,
fastest
to present trophy to Max.
time. 1:42.508. He is, in fact, for Max Visa, your Hankook fastest lap recipient. So a great podium for race 6 of 12 from the 2023 Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia Series.
And welcome again, Mr. Marujo and David. We have another group one.
Championship-wise, that will put Giltrap and Vanderdrift well clear, more than a round clear in advantage points-wise. Another victory, their 4th of the year, 2 seconds and 4 victories. They will have a strong haul of points.